today we need to, and then we have multi layers of this KYC regulation which everybody has to comply with. And but we are getting close to being to that WhatsApp moment for the financial industry. One is this Aadhaar, which has been magical. The way and the reach and the scale it has, the threshold it has been able to achieve. That apart, the NPS I think is a very fundamental thing that has happened, and it is progressing nicely. Today, NPS is nearly. I would also like to tell you some numbers about why we should not be very pleased about the mutual fund industry. Mutual fund industry has 13 lakh crore under management, of which only 3.5 lakh crore come from individuals. The rest of it comes from wealthy individuals and companies who primarily invest in fixed income securities through these mutual funds, because till about a year ago, it provided them the tax arbitrage. It makes them accessible a market which is otherwise not accessible. So what was supposed to be, a vehicle devised to democratize investment for the citizens of this country is primarily being availed by companies to invest in, to gain exposure in the market through fixed income investments. Despite that, a lot of investors have benefited from mutual fund. Mutual fund is one great success story for any investor who has, I haven't come across anybody who has made money in any other part in a sustained way, in a methodical way, except for mutual fund. They present a very compelling case. And given that, we have this Jan Dhan Yojana, that is the only game in town. We are the only economy, if we are going to prosper and thrive in the next decade or so, there will be a mechanism, a good idea finds its takers or finds its place. So that is one of the primary drivers of my optimism. That apart, I think, a lot of people, we are generally, in this context, we are very optimistic, but you should be very cagey. Many a times we are thinking, the first session which was being talked about, that we'll have leaders and creativity and this optimism. One thing which I would like to just summarize, something which I would like you to really take home, what he was referring that, how should we conduct ourselves? I think the basic reason why, how we should conduct ourselves, I don't think there are many ways of approaching it. There's only one way. You work for a consumer and be useful to him. That's the only way to conduct any business, and everything else falls in line. All the things that I'm referring to is entirely a result of not worrying about the end guy, the final guy to whom we should be accountable for, and being useful to him. All that we have done is a very peripheral, entertaining, feeling happy about a set of activity which has not been very productive. So thank you very much.
So we can have a few questions, or you have to start?
We'll now begin with the questions, if anybody from the audience has, but due to time constraints, we can only allow 2 questions.
My name is Sanjeev Kumar. My question is basically to Mr. Dhirendra Kumar. We've been talking about in context of professionalism and ethics. That reminds me and puzzles me till date, when the subprime happened in US in 2008, it upset the entire global financial system. And recently, SEBI had called a meeting of the rating agencies and advised the AMCs of the mutual fund companies not to go by the ratings for putting money in the commercial papers. Now it puzzles you, is it a question of not being very professional whether it was subprime or the recent happening in the Indian mutual fund industry, or it's a question of being ethical. I mean, best of brains being there, hired by the US companies, when the subprime happened, it happened. And here again, going by the professional advice of the rating agencies, and now SEBI advising the mutual fund AMCs not to go by those and do their own in-house research, where is the end to all this?
About your second situation, I know things little more intimately. The first question, I don't think I need to be adding anything more to it, because many books have been written after the post-subprime crisis. We know that embedded conflict of interest and greed was the primary driver of the global financial crisis. But this particular instance, I would like to say that it is not lack of professionalism. There are some problems in the financial system for which we still don't have a solution. There is a conflict of interest. There is a structural problem, because I'm just getting into the micro issue here. That let me just, for the larger audience, let me give you the context. There is a mutual fund company which has two funds. In its two funds, it has one security, the company which has been downgraded by the rating agency. And in India, all the mutual funds run their fixed income fund, and the fixed income fund provides their customers a structure which provides them instant liquidity. You can invest in a fixed income fund today and take your money back tomorrow. While the mutual fund, when the underlying securities they invest in, they are not liquid. They cannot be sold. So they can take exposure to such securities. They should take exposure to such securities in a measured way. It should not be a large part of their portfolio. But what happens is, many mutual funds, but they run an open-end fund here. So your fund this is actually a moving thing. You can have 1,000 crore in a fund, which becomes a 2,000 crore fund in a week's time. In the third week, a lot of people take their money out and it becomes a 500 crore rupee fund. So the fund manager will be forced to act by liquidating his assets. Liquidating his assets is a matter of, not a matter of choice. It's a matter of being able to sell what he can, because all his portfolio is not liquid. So my understanding of the current problem is that this is a faulty structure. This is entirely a problem of design. Investors will always ask for the moon, but you can't deliver it. You have to define that what can be delivered and what is not deliverable. That apart, this is not an issue of credit. Any highest quality credit, if it freezes, it cannot be liquefied. If I tell you that this is a great asset, but you say that I don't care, I want my money now, I don't think this problem can be resolved. So what SEBI is saying, so I think this is a design issue which SEBI has to address in some other way. At the same time, there is a fundamental issue which has not been resolved globally, that rating agencies get paid by the company whom they are assigning the rating. And this is a basic problem which has to be resolved over a period of time. It has to be resolved meaningfully. There are ways in which, at the peak of the subprime crisis, there were ideas thrown up in terms of how it should be addressed. But I guess, we tend to not look at a problem very closely or finding a solution to it if the problem is not very immediate. Yes, it is actually a failure on multiple times. SEBI clears the regulatory structure, how the fund should be structured. Then I don't see that this is a problem. The only problem, this particular problem which we have seen in the last 2-3 weeks is actually not a very big problem at all, because it is 3% of a mutual fund. Your 100 rupee becomes 97 rupee. Should be a non-issue, because that is nature of the beast. If you wanted your 100 rupee never to go down in value, you should put your money in a bank. No, because we have a very hyperactive media. Things have to be addressed. People talk. It becomes headlines. So.
Hello. Please address the issue of passive versus active investing and the related issue of index investing.
Sorry, I didn't get your second part.
Passive versus active investing by fund managers and the related issue of index investing.
No, so what's your question?
The question is the second person who presented the presentation was raising questions about active investing of funds, management of funds. So please address this.
Would like to address?
Yeah, so no, what I said was that in the investment profession, the investment managers have been used to charging fees for actively managing the portfolios of their customers. However, the customers, over a period of time, people have found out that it's hard to beat the market, and most active managers don't beat the market, but still charge a high fee. And there is a related problem that many of these so-called active managers are actually not actively managing at all. They are closely tracking the benchmark, and so you don't really have to pay them high fees for doing that, and you could just put your money into an ETF or a passive fund. So the point I was making was that as an investment professional, you cannot charge fees for something that you are not delivering, and hence you can see the trend of more and more assets going towards passive management from active management.
I understand your point of view, but I would like Mr. Dhirendra Kumar to address this issue.
Okay. I'm in the job of looking at the worth of active management. And in India, let me just put things in perspective. We try and import investment concepts from abroad, understandably so. But I don't think we are a comparable situation. Let me tell you that we only have one index which has a 30-year track record, which is Sensex. After that, the mutual fund regulations mandated that every fund should have a benchmark. So we have 20-year-old fund, but the benchmark is 5-year-old. We are actually trying to create a benchmark where there should be none. We have systemic issues. When I was telling you that we have our fixed income fund, every fixed income fund has a benchmark. But the benchmark, nobody knows. Have you ever heard of a fixed income benchmark? Can you recall anything like Sensex or Nifty or anything? And the constituents of those benchmarks. So leave aside fixed income. What I understand your question that you are asking more in the context of equity investments. That is it worthwhile? It is so far in India, and it is not so far, and it does not justify globally in the developed market. And I have done some deep thinking on this. Also looked at some, anchoring my thoughts in trying to validate it with data, and these are the points which comes to my mind. When we talk of any developed market, the whole economy is represented in the publicly listed domain. In any developing economy, the economy is not reflected in the publicly listed domain. Let me just explain you with this example. You would have heard that 2-3 years back, Warren Buffett bought that railroad company. In India, the largest employer till a couple of years back, before TCS really took over, was the Indian Railways. It is a government department. It's a business which is run by the government. It cannot be bought by people at large. We have all the oil companies. They are owned by government. We have all the oil pump stations, gas stations. They are owned by the government. So we have a good part of our economy which is not in the publicly listed domain. We have only, so So because of our, history, because of the way we have evolved, pre-independence we were a free economy. Post-independence we became a mixed economy, and now we are trying to be into a free economy mode, where the government has decided to actually be a free economy, but says that it is unlikely to be privatizing the public sector. So we don't know what kind of economy we are going into. Sorry? Yeah. So what I'm saying is that we have we don't have a comparable market dynamics to be. Then comes passive. The numbers are that last 20 years the equity funds which have existed, 90% of our equity funds beat the benchmark by a very wide margin. Even our investment management profession was dominated by public sector. So I would say that we have a very unique situation that active management is thriving, prospering, and beating the index, and that is why we do not have any meaningful money in the index.
Thank you, panelists, for such an enlightening discussion. With this, we come to the conclusion of our session. I would now request Mr. Ravi Krovi to present the mementos to Mr. Dr. CKG Nair.
What is more about? Yeah.
Mr. Vidhu Shekhar,
and Mr. Dhirendra Kumar.
Yeah, I thought this is